So one thing is, if there's an ice wall and a perimeter and nothing passed and this is it, then we start to understand their whole Newtonian particle physics are gone. Particles are out the window, everything's wave now. So that collapses every single other science they have. When you understand that you're at the center of something, this is important where we are. This might be it, baby.
In icy lands past perception, where maps end and compass breaks, continental mass deception, a cosmology that's fake. They made scientific cages, cloaked the stars in Newton's math, hiding clockwork of the ages, and the guide to your life's path. All the magic is within you, but they don't want you to know. You're the center of the circle, and the lies are just a show. Past the edge of the ice wall, far beyond the firmament, we return through the spiral to live and learn again. They conceal the books of heaven, NASA actors in the sky, but the logos is still rising, lighting the dark of your mind. Then they sold you simulation, gave you pixels for your prayer, but your life force is electric, and the world is your mirror. All the magic is within you, but they don't want you to know. You're the center of creation, and the light of truth will show. Past the edge of the ice wall, far beyond the firmament, we return through the spiral to live and learn again. You are the light, the key, don't need permission to see, to pay for wisdom's cost, reject false authority. The truth was never lost, it was always within reach. The InnerVerse is here, and you will conquer all fear.
Welcome to the One Within All to the InnerVerse podcast. I'm your host, Chance, and I'd like to begin this episode with a saying often attributed to Buddha. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And in recent months, there's been a bit of an uproar on these crazy internets over whether or not the sun remains unhidden sometimes in that mythical and forbidden place we call Antarctica. After a few well-known flat Earth content creators embarked upon a widely publicized journey to that frozen wasteland, with the poorly conceived and incendiary title, The Final Experiment. And true to poetic symmetry between hexes and hoaxes, many globe skeptics have been up in arms about their published results, circulating theories to dispute the pseudo-experimenters' claims, with some claiming them to be sellouts, scrutinizing their footage for potential fakery, or asserting that the proverbial and omnipresent they of the secret world controllers must have gotten to these flat earthers with blackmail or other threats. And I'm not the only one who thinks it's a bit fishy that a particular and fairly famous flat earther with a decade of research under his belt would suddenly revert back to life on a magical spinning ball. Truthfully, I've never seen anything but a one-way conversion from globe to flat, and it's definitely strange that the one non-experiment was able to, by simply observing an effect, somehow undermine all the other observed effects that can only exist on a level plane. And I'm not the only one who is disconcerted about this public about-face. Joining me today for the first time is Steve Falconer of the Spacebusters YouTube channel, a multifaceted musician and filmmaker whose research spans an incredible and InnerVerse resonant array of topics, from esoteric biochemistry, alternative history, and allegorical interpretations of scripture, just to name a few favorites. And I've wanted to speak with Steve for a while, but after this so-called final experiment dropped, and Steve promptly busted its claims with his new documentary, Scamtarctica, a thoroughly researched and precisely crafted kill shot to the mainstream narrative that's given about Antarctica, I knew it was high time for us to collab. So check out the show notes for links to Steve's content and his movie, and for all the ways you can support InnerVerse. Now let's get into it. Everyone, welcome the Zetetic skeptic and recomposer of the great cosmological song, Steve Falconer. Thanks for joining me, man.
Chance, it's awesome, man. Thanks. It's good to finally hook up. And yeah, you know, I've been researching part 3. The first 2 of Scamtarctica are out, and the more I'm looking in, the more I'm uncovering, you know, there's going to be a plot twist coming up. But yeah, there's a few things. There's a lot of things fishy for starters. The main thing is the 2 who went, right? If you had surgery and there was a 50% chance you were going to die on the table, you wouldn't put all your faith into that surgery. You wouldn't get it. One of the logical fallacies that everyone's using, the globers and some of the flatties who are turning, which not many are, this shouldn't even be a big deal. I don't know anyone who's seen the 24-hour sun and said, oh, yeah, I'm a glober. I don't know anyone personally who jumped ship, you know, but my friends are more, they're not flat earthers. I'm not calling flat earthers non-intelligent. I'm saying my friends are more people into esoteric realms. They're used to thinking on different levels than physically Newtonian. But Austin didn't flip. So you've got 50% of the flat earth team. One didn't flip, but nobody will talk about him. They only talk about the other guy, right? They're not going to talk about Austin. And you're like, well, that's convenient, isn't it? Why aren't we just not going to mention him, that another guy saw something too, and he's still not flipping? Because, you know, one truth doesn't cancel out 20,000 other truths. Both must be true, or as we'll get into, one might even be a lie or fake.
Yeah, man. And this became serious fodder for Google search results, top of the page, like mainstream publications, newspapers, and websites like flat earthers revert back to the globe. Flat earthers admit defeat. It's like this. It's like a party for the lie.
Yeah. One flat earther on the trip did. And let's talk about the other guy. Right? Austin's not here, Mrs. Torrance. You know, it's like, come on, man. So that's all bogus too. Also, yeah, that's not an experiment. There's no control. They don't really know where they were. There is no proof that was the sun. There is some possibility there was some fakery going on. There are other possibilities, as I presented in the film, that there is the other very reasonable explanations why there might be an apparent 24-hour sun there. There's some other ones we didn't even put in the film. And as I'm starting to, I don't want to say this, but I'm starting to think that somehow it was faked. I don't think Jaron or Austin, and I'm not saying Jay's name because his sex scandal files have hit the internet and they're gross what he's been sending to women. So I don't even want to utter that guy's name anymore or have anything to do with him. But it's looking to me, I've gone through now and researched all of the old Antarctic expeditions from the late 1500s to the mid 1900s. Nobody has ever mentioned a 24-hour sun, and they go there during those months because that's the warmest when they can break through the ice and get in there. Never once was it mentioned. All of their journals mention night, next morning, day, night, dusk. Oh, there's just enough light to see, not right now. Like there's not. You would think if you went down there and got on there, the first thing you would say on a scientific expedition is, oh my God, there's a 24-hour sun. Like you would talk about it constantly. Never once been mentioned. I have a letter from the head of the U.S. Naval Department saying exactly to the seconds how much darkness there is on December 21st at 70 South latitude. So he's saying all these bases, anyone claiming to be inside there, he's showing they're already having 4 hours of darkness. There's no 24-hour sun. So you cannot be inside that latitude ring and claiming to have a sun when this guy claims, he says it himself, he verifies, no way. So I can't find any proof that there is or even should be one down there. And the problem we have is we have a whole ring of bases, and we can show the map later, outside of 70. Right. They're at 63.3 and 67.3, 67.5. So if you were on a globe, even, you know, if this is the South Pole latitude ring, there'd be 80, there'd be 70, there'd be 6. So we've got things outside the ring claiming they're having 24-hour sun when this admiral says there isn't even one on a ring inside. There's 4 hours of darkness on December 21st, or no sun anyway, for sure. Not dark, but no visual sun in the sky. So we've got some very big problems here. Nothing is matching up to what's going on. And I'm the last guy who wanted to think that this could be faked. I didn't want to leech on to Dave and Marty's tech, thing, but I have no other choice than to go where my research is leading. And I think it's fake. I think they went, but I don't think what that was in the sky was the sun. I don't think so.
Well, it would be just like the days out there to hedge their bets, do a fake, and maybe a blackmail campaign. I mean, there's so many possibilities. However, even if we give the benefit of the doubt that they really did see it, and there really is a 24-hour sun at 70 degree, then your quote from this book, this old Zetetic astronomy book that you pulled up in the first documentary, where they say, these southern Zetetics know that the earth and sea are horizontal and stationary, yet they are candid enough to testify to celestial motions, which some illogically think are opposed to this great fact. But one fact can never contradict another fact. Both must be true. Zetetics, therefore, in the north must be candid enough to accept the facts on celestial motions in the south, just as we wish globularists to be candid and reasonable enough to accept the well-known fact that water is level and earth therefore a plane. Only those who are candid and sincere will arrive at the truth. Though they may not obtain it all, they certainly will obtain much more than those who are not candid. And what's being said here is super profound, that just because you are able to find a fact that you can't explain, it doesn't negate other facts that you've established, like the many facts that dispute the globe model. There's way too many to list, right? But I myself have been able to see farther than you should be able to see for curvature and done that experiment in more than one place. There's obviously the fact of water retaining its level. There's crazy anomalies in the southern hemisphere, like magnetic declination. On top of that, quote, besides the potential of a 24-hour sun, the way that the sky flips upside down and the seasons invert in the southern so-called hemisphere, for lack of a better term. These are not things that, even though they're hard to explain outside of a globe model, these are not things that rule out these other observations that are absolutely verifiable and repeatable by anybody. So I find it profound that someone could ever even claim to flip back to a globe that is easily and thoroughly not just debunked, but destroyed.
And we've got we've got the engineering. We have the actual engineering data on all the locks, for instance, through New York State and Rochester and all that. And Suez Canal, we have it. We have their datum line where you have to put a straight line at the bottom. They would have 630 feet of water pouring down a cascade of curve with no locks in between, and they don't have that. And we have the blueprints from all of the tech, all of the engineers and people who built these locks. We still have this on record. So that's right. If you're to tell me that the light in the sky in Antarctica cancels out the fact that there's a flat lock in the Suez Canal with a 600-foot differential and it's flat as a pancake, I mean, that you're silly. Anyone who says that a light in the sky cancels that out, I won't listen to. People can listen to whoever they want, but I can't take that person seriously. I'm not going to name names, but we know who I'm talking about. You're welcome to name them. So
I don't care.
That's what the Zetetics are saying, with all of the other evidence, take any one of those 10,000 flat evidences and say a light in the sky cancel this out. The answer is no. The answer is always no. A light in the sky does not cancel out any other evidence that you can see too far, and there are other falsehoods, when you're looking through, when they're doing sightings, the engineers, we can go through these and things where they see their line below the water line, but that's because there's 5 mirrors in these theodolites and they're getting 5 light refractions. So it's been tested, and depending on which theodolites they use, it gets a little closer. But as soon as they put a long metal pole off the end of it with a little hole in the end and get rid of the light refraction, whoop, it goes right back up to eye level. Or you can just go outside if you don't have one and take a piece of wood, right, and just look down the plank out at the water, and the water will come right up to the end of the wood if you don't have lenses on the end of it. So, there's a lot of myths that can be easily debunked. And in fact, Gleason debunked all of these. We're having the same talk they were having in 1880. Like everything they bring up, it's all in Gleason's book, and he debunked all of it. So it's already been done scientifically. We just need to go back now and start looking at their fights back then, because the answers have already been given to all of these same ridiculous arguments that the globies are making. And there are some fallacies too in the flat earth model and everything too, which I think that's been the best thing for me, is this has got us to say, hang on, is this model really are we right here? At least the model, we're not saying it's not flat, but we're saying, what's this with a dome and a firmament and the sun and moon traveling around these arcs without elevation change? There's a lot of things we need to look at. I'm convinced the ice is there. And it's also, I've plotted all the bases in Antarctica that I have. And I've got another guy, Rob, who sent me the rest I didn't have. And I've been looking at their Antarctic expeditions, and you can go on Google Earth, Wikipedia, dateandtime.com. They give 3 or 4 different locations for where the South Pole base is, which are wildly off either on even on the globe, but even more on the Gleason map. So you're like, what the hell is this? Then I have Scott's journal, the guy who was the first race to the pole against the Norwegian Edmundson. And he gives all of the longitude and latitude coordinates for their trek. And it was only 900 miles. And when you plot it out, it's nowhere near where they say that base is today. So now you're starting to look and say, have they been writing fake journals since back then? Like, did that thing even happen? Or are they lying now about where it is? Because the only proof you have it's there is a photograph of a tin can dropped in the middle of a Google. You know how Google Earth is anyway. When you zoom in on anything, it looks like Minecraft. It's all these squares put together, and then boop, oh, there's your base. And you're like, show me, man. Oh, no, our satellites can't get it. And you're like, well, they seem to get some of it. So, how do you really know there's a base there and that it's in light? And I'll show you why Gleason said it should be in actual darkness completely past 70 or 80. Sorry, not 70, 80.
There's a lot of the hard-hitting data analysis in your documentaries, and I want to get to some of that as best we can. But the question that always comes up, especially if there's people listening that don't really care about this topic or think about it much, it's maybe the first they're hearing, and they're always going to ask, why would they lie about something like this? Why would they lie? And I came up with a metaphor that was sort of mind-blowing, I'd never thought of before, as a perfect description of this cosmological conundrum. And I wonder what you think about this Antarctica situation in particular, representing a type of inverted Tower of Babel. The nations are uniting, but not to find enlightenment and raise up to the center to seek God and truth, but they're actually at the periphery to obscure the truth that would reveal God and God's handiwork in the structure of our realm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that has so many different levels and answers, and people always ask it. For me, one of the main ones is they would be hiding the fact that all is toroidal fields. They do not want us to know that the ancients all is atum. They don't want us to know the secrets they hold in the mystery school teachings and the Masonic lodges. You've got it. Yeah. Everything is a toroidal field, and light is just a vibration or perturbation in the ether that collapses it, and that causes either luminescent light we can see with our senses, or you can have light that's moving at frequencies we can't perceive, like a dog whistle. So one thing is, if there's an ice wall and a perimeter and nothing passed and this is it, then we start to understand their whole Newtonian particle physics are gone. Particles are out the window. Everything's wave now. So that collapses every single other science they have. And that goes into medicine and atom bombs. And, that you can extrapolate that forever and ever and ever. it can't be that. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's, they want to take away God, which is true. You understand that you're at the center of something. This is important where we are. And they don't want you to think that, they want, oh, when you die, you'll go off to heaven. And they don't want to talk about reincarnation and all the books that were taken out of the scriptures. And they don't want you to know that you might be coming back here again and again. This might be it, baby. But it does take away the feeling of empowerment. Oh, you just are a monkey who crawled out of the ocean on a spinning ball that's an infinite speck of dust out in the middle of nowhere, and you're not important. Right. And people who don't feel empowered aren't powerful. They're not afraid of them. That's the one everyone else uses. Then you have copyright law. So the Vatican, they own all of our souls due to their unum sanctum, their papal bull. And they have a copyright on the date, the place, and our name. So whenever you sign a contract, you have to sign your name, which is they make for you when you're born. That's your all caps name, your Strawman. You have to date it because we're on their Pope Gregor calendar. They say today is whatever today is, April 7th, 2025, only on their calendar. They own that fiction. They own the time and they own the place. They say we live on this spinning ball. So they own your name, your date, and your place. That's called copyright. So any business or commerce you do, because the whole world is under commerce and all commerce goes to the Vatican. It's not the Jays, as everyone's trying to say. It's Zionists, and only 1 out of 10 Zionists are Jewish. The Jesuits set all that up. So they own the copyright.
Wrong
so
Jays.
if
people got the wrong Jays.
What's that?
People got the wrong Jays.
They got the wrong Jays. Yeah, they're looking for the other ones. It's not the Jesuits either. They work for the people in charge, but still. So they've got the copyright. If we don't live on their spinning ball and it's not really the date they say it is, they already have no more rights and claims to our taxes and our strawman. That they're out the window there. It's gone. So that's another reason people don't really talk about. That's how they own us. Is J.K. Rowling owns Harry Potter. I always say it. She owns the rights to the Hogwarts universe, and Harry Potter and Ron and Hermione in the time. So if you try to dress up like Harry Potter, you and me, and go out and like try to make money, pretending we're doing Harry Potter appearances, we owe that chick money. And that's what we're doing. We're going out pretending to be our all caps name on a fake spinning ball in a fake universe that doesn't exist, on a fake calendar that doesn't exist. And we owe them money because we're doing that. We're making money off our name. Everything you've ever done with commerce, you signed your name and date. And it all happens in their fake universe. They own Harry Potterville, and that's where we are. We're in a fiction, and they own it. We're like characters trapped in a book or movie we can't get out of. So that's another reason that no one talks about. And they don't want us going out there because if we prove that we're not on this spinning space ball, their whole thing collapses there too, not just their sciences, but the commerce. And that's what they really love, is the money and control and power.
So this is a good book for people. Although Clint hasn't made it off the globe himself, this book though, giant tome, Strawman.
Yeah,
definitely. It's your new Bible because it's got the Bible in it of understanding this idea of fiction versus reality, which is one of the most important concepts to wrap your head around to get back to a status of, out of status really, which is stasis, and into a more subjective, personal, spiritual time rather than this construct time place, the timestamp of your bank account, of your online digital persona and all that. So, and
they can get our buddy Stevie Young's book that, Stephen Young, Fool's Wisdom too. I've got it buried under several here. If they want to learn about the other sciences that I'm talking about, that will all collapse, too. So everything, their whole scam on every level hinges on this globe. That's why they'll defend it to the death, and why they will do anything to fake moon landings, or even, I think, fake this. And they really only had to do it for about 4 hours that I can see from what I'm digging up from all my from the other expeditions. They've only have to do it for about 4 hours. There would have really been a sun going low across the sky for most of the day, because when they were there, that's not like an unproven, that's an accepted thing by everybody. So you'd really only have to 4 hours somehow with a sun simulator or whatever these plasma techs that Dave Weiss and Marty Leeds have been talking about, or a frickin' screen out. I don't know how they did it, right? I'm of the opinion, though, because I know and trust Austin, I am of the opinion that they went and they think that they saw and they filmed a sun. I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with that, but that's just my opinion. And that could be my own confirmation bias because I trust Austin. And I used to trust the other guy until recently.
I'm of the mind that whether or not they saw it, again, back to what I said, quoting the Zetetic astronomy book, it doesn't throw out all of the other distinct, provable, and numerous observations that this is a flat plane. Now, that being said, if we wanted to jump on their model and explore it, as you've done in your documentary, what about these sunrise and sunset time discrepancies around Antarctica? How these research bases do not align with the positions and angles of the sun and the timing of that as we'd expect on a sphere, as we've been told this perfect model should be able to predict.
Yeah, and see, a lot of that's all fallacy too. So a lot of the criticism I'm getting about that, they're saying, well, you have to look at the altitudes for starters, which could be true on bases inside. Like, you know, there are allegedly major altitude differences, but all the bases I did around the coast facing north where the sun comes around the Tropic of Capricorn, there's ocean between you. That's it. There's no elevation on the coast it's ocean. It's flat. It's sea level. So yeah, the sun times, they could change. If you were going from a base I could see outside on the coast inside, and I'll concede that to them, but not when the sun goes east to west as it does every day, coast to coast to coast with nothing but water between the sun. That's not how it goes. And they're misunderstanding too. They're saying, well, look at this for Australia on December 21st. It says the sun is rising to the southeast, not the northeast. So how can that work? See, and I show them, you have to open the day, dummies, and look at where the sun is in the day from the morning to the noon. You will always see it at 0 and 45 degrees or 90 degrees if you're close. And it will be northeast and northwest and north of you. You can't just look at where it's coming from. And I can show on Gleason's map how the light angles wrap around the ice wall where you can see the direction of the sun's light looks to be coming from southwest as it comes around the bowl first. And we can show visuals. I can show that later. But you have to open the day on the website and look at the day where the sun is. Like, the sun isn't behind you. The sun doesn't, if you're in Australia here, even if you're on the globe, I have to do this backwards. You're seeing this the other way. Let's say you're on, here's Australia here. The Tropic of Capricorn, the sun goes like this, comes straight across, right? Even on a globe, they say that's because you're spinning toward it. But on the flat earth, it just looks like the sun's circling. I have to do it backwards. This, and they're outside here. So it's always north of them because Australia is on, like southern Australia is on an outer or more southern latitude ring than the Tropic of Capricorn, which means that on both models, the Tropic of Capricorn is north of southern Australia. It never will not be. So the sun is always north of you. It's just that the position that it comes up around on with the lighting due to your solar noon apex is southeast before it rises. It's just an angular thing. That's all it is. But these people are just pulling up, oh, the sunrise is coming from the north, the southwest, and the southeast, and setting in the southwest. You're like, yeah, but you have to look at the day. You can't tell me that the sun flew behind the people in Australia. Let's put them on a globe. You can't tell me the sun. I got to go to the other way. Yeah, the sun flew across the sky under them on the globe. Then all of a sudden, went, whoop, flew up over them, went around, went, whoop, and sat down here. That would mean the Earth would not only be spinning that way, it would have to wobble the size of Australia like this and then wobble back and then do it again for South Africa. and then flip back down to the Antarctic bases I showed, and then flip right back up again to get, I've got a graphic of what it would have to do. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They're just angular things. And I can show people how it works. So I'm going to cover that in part 3. So we have a lot of people saying stuff and they're not looking. They're also looking at, well, when you look at like a zenith, which is above you, when you're looking at azimuth. They've got your ground azimuth and you've got your altitude azimuth, right? So we're standing in the North Pole. Zenith is the North Star, let's say, right above our head. We'll say it's Polaris. That's our geographical zenith, is Polaris, right above our head if we're in the North Pole. So then you can look out, and then you have an arc of the sky because the celestial sphere is curved. It's not straight, right? So like if we're standing in the North Pole, and we want to see some stars or we want to see the equator, the sky is going to arc. So if we want to see Polaris where we're standing, we have to look straight up 90 degrees in the air. We have to look right up to 90 to see Polaris at our zenith above our head. If we want to see the equator, we have to look out at 45 degrees in the sky. So that's your azimuth. And then even to figure out an azimuth, you need to be standing on a flat plane. It doesn't work around a curved globe surface over distances. So what they do is called an affirming the consequence. They say, because we use an azimuth projection to figure out globe coordinates, ball coordinates, we live on a globe. It's like, no, you just because you use that doesn't mean you're on a globe. You're using it because of the sky. It doesn't even work if the ground's curved. When you start looking at how this works, the ground is assumed to be flat. So even on their own model,
the use of a sextant for navigation.
Yes.
The
ground
use a sextant
flat
with a curved surface. It's trigonometry, triangles, flat lines.
Right, it's triangles, yeah. And they even show it, like when you look this up, and go to any website or Wikipedia, they show you the ground's flat. But see, they're saying this has been used for navigation because they built our GPS coordinate system on this. But they built it using the stars. The heavens are curved. That's where we got all of our longitude and latitudes are from a curved roof, not a curved ground. So they're saying because we use it for a ball, then we live on a ball. And you're like, no. So that's why Gleason had to redo his map. And we're working. Ross is back, my old Spacebusters partner, the guy who started the channel. So we're working together again. That's why Gleason's map is so much different, because he's saying, no, these aren't the distances or the positions. They're different. They have been having to fudge them to squeeze them on the globe. Now, it's true, you can do it either way. Because they've got the map is just a map. It's just directions. Whether you're on a globe or you're on this thing, if you can set your heading from one to another on any map, you'll get there. Do you know what I mean? But I think if Columbus was even real, this is why he could have been wildly off if he's already using Jesuit bullshit. In fact, in England, the only diagram there is in the law books of the lords, they have the House of Lords, or all their lords and whatever. There's only one diagram in the whole law book of the country, and that is that they have to start assuming a flat datum line when they do any engineering projects. It shows you have to have a datum line and a plumb line that you cannot use curve, because they had so many expensive countrywide engineering projects that didn't work. Bridges, rivers, canals, they went bust because it didn't work because they were using curve. So it's on the English law books that you have to assume flat.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the hundreds of miles of train tracks. Those are not calculated curved. They're not.
But building a lock or a dam
the track
or a bridge. It's so, so yeah, as you said, like take any of the 20,000 flat earth proofs there are and ask yourself, does a light in the sky in Antarctica disprove this? And the answer is always no. The answer is it doesn't disprove it. Like the Zetetic said, both things must either be correct, and we need another explanation as to how that is, or one's lying. Now, which is lying, the one light in the sky or the 20,000 other flat earth proofs, which, I'm not an Occam's razor fan, but like, if you want to put Occam's razor to it, what's simpler, that 20,000 lies are being told that people can personally experience, or one lie that only 5 people claim to have experienced?
Well, speaking of Occam's razor and cutting away some lies, back to the sunrise, sunset time discrepancies. I don't think we exactly mentioned this globe axiom that says latitude, anywhere in the same latitude, the same sunrise, sunset time of day must occur on a particular day. And can you talk about
day length? Yeah, not the well, not the sun, not the time of sunrise and sunset, because obviously, let's say you're in, where are you? Where are you at?
Missouri.
Okay, so you're in Missouri. You're probably almost on a similar latitude ring. That's the ones that go sideways for people who don't know what longitude and latitude are. Goes around your globe, or the circles on the flat Earth map. I'm in Copenhagen.
I'm on the mythical 37th parallel.
Yeah. So, so anyone, let's say someone over in Europe, though, let's say someone in France or Italy or Germany, wherever that 33 is. Let's say they're on the exact same one as you, but they're in France or Germany. Obviously, the sunrise is going to be different because they're on the other side. It'll be night for them and day for you. So the times don't matter, but your day lengths will be the same. And your solar noons will be as close to you as it is to them. You see what I mean? Yeah. And what happens in a latitude stays in latitude. So you can't have a 12-hour day of sunlight, and on the same day they have an 8-hour day of sunlight. That can't happen if they're on the same exact latitude, because, as I said, the sun's coming across a latitude every day. It's changing 10 miles per day, but either coming from the Tropic of Cancer to the equator in Capricorn on the way from summer to winter for the northern hemisphere, and then back. So every day it's going to move 10 miles in, and 10 miles back, except the 2 days when it hits Cancer and Capricorn. That's your Jesus dies for 3 days in the tomb and is resurrected, or your Tropic of Cancer, the crab walks sideways, because for 2 days the sun stops and stays on the same ring. But that's only because they've had to draw an international date line for commerce. So they have, one place is allegedly a day ahead, right? Like you say, Australia is a day ahead of me. Well, no, you're not. You're all really on the same day. There's just one sun lap. You see what I mean? They're not really a day ahead. Like it's the day is the sun lapping around. They're not a day ahead. They just do it for commerce. So that also is part of your 2 days when you're making observations, is which day. There's a fake day in there because of the date line. You know what I mean? That's where they drew their Greenwich Mean Line and all that. So there's a lot more to it.
On that, and just point out too, back to like the fiction versus reality, that the true time is now, and that's the only time that exists. That's the only real thing. And then the fiction time is the clock time, right? And what's fascinating about this Kali Yuga age, where quantity reigns over quality in most people's perception, is that this quantitative time system that everyone is applied to in a uniform fashion, despite being uniform, it actually is divisive, because we're all on a different, slightly distinct time and time zone and all that. So it's wild how much of the modern world's construction creates uniformity, as in forces everybody to do the same thing, but yet divides everybody from each other and from the essential unity, like spiritually. I just like to point that out.
Yeah. And like I don't know, don't you feel like days are just flying by now? Like compared to when you were a kid? To me,
I just had a baby. Over. So now I feel like the last 5 months have been really slow and really fast. It's hard to even describe. Like subjectively, it's slow.
When you have a baby, it's in your.
I feel like we've had this baby forever.
Congratulations. Yeah. When you're pushing them around in a stroller, and then you get out at 6 a.m. and it's only 9, and you feel like it's 4 p.m. You're like, damn, is it only 9 a.m.? But like without babies, and now you're on their time too. So that's kind of what the babies do, is you have to slow down to your baby's time when you're with it, see. For me, the days fly by, but then, we just were saying, our time zones each change. And I was saying to you, like, am I going to make this call on time? suddenly we've got this hassle about like, is it 7 p.m.? Is it 6? What time is it? And, and they're doing that too, because they throw your rhythms off because you finally get used to a light rhythm and a dark rhythm. That's the reason they all have jobs start at 9 to 5. Most people would normally wake up with the sun and go to sleep with it, like if you didn't have clocks. So they always want to get you up. They want to wake you up with an alarm clock, an alarm. You're alarmed, right? You're scared. Oh, it's your alarm clock. Your alarm. They alarm you first thing in the morning, scare the shit out of you.
Report I haven't woken up to an alarm clock in, I don't know, at least 5 years, maybe longer. Maybe longer. I've always had the natural ability to wake up at the time I told myself to anyway.
You can do that if you say like 4 times before bedtime, and then you will wake up like when you say. Your body can do it. I only, if I have a flight to catch in the morning or something, or if I'm taking a nap and need to get up at night for something. But yeah, I'm the same.
Gig life. That's, worth it for.
Yeah, I'm the night dude. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So we're all on fake times ourselves, and then we're on these fake times with everyone else with these time zones. There's something like 35 or 6 of them when you go. That's another weird thing when you go south of the equator on a globe or outside on the Gleason. There's more time zones. They start adding them in because it doesn't work on a globe.
Right. Isn't it something like 19 in the northern hemisphere and like 24 around the equator and more south of that?
Yeah, it's something crazy. Dave
above the equator and more below the equator, which nobody really knows unless they're globe skeptics. But that doesn't make sense if the circumference of the ring of latitude is the same in the north as it is in the south. But guess what? It's not. Provably not, based on how compass readings malfunction in the south. Like, that's a huge red flag.
And also, that was another one of the globe destroyers back in the 1890s, is they started to have the day lengths and dates for latitudes in the north, like where we have 24-hour sun in Fabel and up in the northern and the south. And even the places that weren't having 24-hour sun, the day lengths aren't even close, even though they're on matching latitudes on a globe. So on a globe, what happens even in this latitude has to happen in north latitude, north and south. You're not only stuck with everybody on one latitude ring having to have the same, but now you're stuck with everybody on the other ring at their inverse of the date having to have the same thing too. And it doesn't match up. And that's because we're not on a globe, obviously. So,
if we didn't make it clear what you revealed in your documentary, at least putting any kind of trust, maybe we shouldn't, in the institutional sun tracking softwares and date and time websites or Stellarium, that the latitude rings of the South continent, supposed continent, Antarctica, that are where their base is on the same ring, have wildly different day lengths on any given day. So varied that, as far as I remember, you weren't able to find a single case where they matched up the way that they should.
I found no, not a one, not even on the same base. Like 3 different websites, sometimes 4 on the same base, they can't agree. And then none of them are matching up with each other. They can't even agree what day their 24-hour sun starts. They were off from each other by anywhere from 2 to 15. One of the longest ones was 25 days or something like that. And then there was an even longer one that was so ridiculous that I found out later. It's because they had a station in Queen. It was 2 places with a similar name, and they were just talking about another one. I was like, I just even threw that out of the data set. It was so off. I'm like, I can't even. You're
probably the first person to ever actually scrutinize that data in that way.
I think I am. Yeah. And as I asked people, scrutinize my research too, which is great. They're coming back saying, hey, did you take into latitude, for instance, or altitude? And did you take this? But then again, they're talking about altitudinal azimuth, and they're talking about things that, like a sextant, you still need to assume a globe, but you still have to have a flat ground. So they're using, this is the problem, is they're talking about apples and we're talking about oranges. And we always have to argue on Glober's terms. Do you ever notice that? Globers never argue on flat earthers terms. They never say anything what you're saying is wrong. They always go, well, how do you explain this? They go to theirs. They go to atomism, Newtonian Jesuit particle atomism, because they never can debunk what we're saying. They always say, well, explain this then, and then they make us have to talk in their language, but we're oranges, they're apples. We're saying we're not on that shit, mate. We're on waves, you're on particles. We're not. You're trying to make us describe apples with orange language. Does that make sense? We can't do it. So we're arguing the wrong thing anyway, because we're like, it don't even work remotely like you guys say. That's why we make stupid things in our models where we incorporate bits of apple into our orange model. So we've got this weird hybrid orange with chunks of apple sticking off on the firmament and the sun altitude. You see, we have to put all this, space is a vacuum, so we have to have an enclosed dome overhead, right? And you're like, well, who said there's space and who proved it's a vacuum?
So you see,
yeah,
we went to the moon.
So who was it? Who said
that? A good challenge for a person who is a globe believer, but wants to prove they're not in denial, as many of them tend to be, like you're describing. I would like to see some globe believer pretend to be a flat Earth proponent for a day and just gather a few arguments that people would make if they were a flat earther in the conversation, and go try to talk to some normie folks about those points and see what it's like on our side to try to argue our point to the globe people. Cause it is like, they can't hear it. But we're probably preaching to the choir about that.
Do you know, it's funny. You said it. Someone said nature abhors a vacuum. Who said that? It was one of their own scientists said nature abhors a vacuum. So you're like, so 99.999% of your universe is a vacuum, even though nature would, it doesn't even make sense. But
apparently it's Parmenides.
Okay. Yeah.
Popularized by Aristotle.
Okay. So it's funny enough, like Ross, the other Spacebuster, he's living on a property with this other guy. So the other guy's a globey and the guy's son is going flat, right? So the son and the dad were trying to have a flat versus globe debate, and Ross is flat, like me, obviously. He had to switch over to the dad's side to explain the globe. Like, he had to argue against flat Earth, you know what I mean, to the son, just so he could explain to the dad the physics. The dad didn't even know the globe physics. So here you got a flat earther explaining the globe physics. That's what you're up against. Is they don't even look at this shit because they're like, oh, I took that in high school and maybe college. They haven't looked at this shit unless they're like Professor Dave or something. And I don't think they even look at it either. They still just regurgitate, they parrot what's in their books and stuff. So, yeah, but he said it was really interesting. He said, Stevie, it was really weird to I had to argue the globe. And he said, and it's ridiculous. Like, I just sounded like an idiot what was coming out of my mouth.
Well, as fun as it's fun to globe bash. It's hard not to, because blowing off to the proverbial steam about trying to talk to people on these subjects, it is cathartic to be able to do that with somebody like yourself. However, at this point in the show, I'd love to hear some more about what's coming up in the third part of your series on Scamtarctica, because I think maybe this will be some new, fresh gravy.
Yeah, so I'm working with this guy, Rob. Now, he's the guy, if people who have the updated high-def Gleason map in blue and some of these kind of maps, he's the guy who made this. He's the dude who updated the whole Gleason's map. So he's a map maker. He did some military map making. So we've been working, seeing Gleason claims that map is accurate, land-wise, lengths, distances, all that. One things we've done is we've plotted all the bases along the ice wall. I've plotted the journeys that all these Antarctic expeditions did. I found them in old encyclopedias from the 1880s and 90s, all the journeys that I could find from the late 1500s. Now what's starting to happen, how these sun times were off in the beginning. Not if these bases are farther away from each other. In fact, You know, this story, Sane 4. Have you heard this story where they are stranded for 190 days and this madman in an Antarctic base has been going around with a knife, like assaulting people? I think he might have killed one.
Well,
have you read that story?
That from the top. I don't know this one.
There's Sane 4. It's been in all the major newspapers a couple of weeks ago. Someone went mad there and is running around with a knife. I don't know if they killed someone or has been terrorizing all of them. And it's like right out of like a horror film, you know. And they're saying these poor bastards are stuck there for like 190 days. And I'm saying, hang on, because when you go on the globe and start looking at where all these bases are from Sane 4, Troll Station's 119 miles away. They have a runway. Neumayer's 140. Tor Station's 174. Novoliskaya, Maitri is 330 away, but they have a helicopter and a runway pad. You got a BOA the other way, 240 miles, 258 to Svea, and Conan's 230. So how can it take 190 days to come rescue them when there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? There's 8 bases within 200 miles of them. But not when you plot them on an ice wall around a Gleason map, because the longitudes are a lot wider out there than the little pie slices on the inside. You know what I'm saying? As your pie slice gets bigger out here, the edge of your pizza crust is a lot wider than your tip.
Yeah, and people at those bases traveling east to west, thinking they're going to go to one of these nearby bases, they might not even have any conception of how far away mile-wise it really is.
Right. Right, because they always fly in north to south. See, they fly in north to south. But that's not what happens on the Gleason's map. One base is way over here. These bases and this is what we're mapping now. So we're we're quadruple checking our distances. This could be right. They could be fooked out there because there isn't anyone else really around for much more miles than the globe has to say they are.
Right.
It's pretty
that would make more sense. Why so many bases? When you look at the globe version of Antarctica, there are so many bases clustered close together. But if you did spread those out around the circumference as an ice wall around the Gleason, then they're not that close together at all. They're perfectly spaced out around the perimeter like a fence.
Yes.
And this news story you're talking about is a perfect example of something I was already going to bring up, which is that when Antarctica rarely is featured in the news, it's almost always paired with some kind of absurd or spooky narrative like aliens or ancient viruses or Hollywood movie style serial killer knife guy that you just brought up. It's always like that.
That's a good point too, because I started looking at like, what are they doing at these bases? And one of them's like advanced virus research and climate. A lot of them are climate change. You know, like half the shit they're doing out there is all fake sciences anyway, like BS stuff. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, there's so many layers. I don't want to give away the plot. What I will tell you is, as you correctly noticed, chances, you said there's a cluster of bases and then there's long ass coast where there's nothing there. Now, before we had airplanes, that's because there's a giant ice wall around everything. So there's only 2 places they can get on at these coastal areas and a glacier area where they can cut through with an icebreaker. So in the old days, the ships couldn't get on the ice wall. There's only 2 spots they could actually get in onto the mainland, what they're calling mainland, which, as I'll show in the film, it's not what you keep saying this word mainland. I do not think it is what you think it is. But when you look at what Gleason's showing, that there cannot be any light past 80 south, and then you take a look at the Gleason map, where is the 80 south latitude ring around the ice wall? The ice wall cuts in a little, it's skinnier at a certain part where it's all past 80, and there's not a base for a quarter of the earth around that. And is that because it's pitch black? You don't put a base there because it's black? It's not 24-hour sun. See, I'm starting to say, hang on. Is it, instead of 24-hour sun for 4 months, is it just black 365 days a year past 80? Because we don't really, because of Scott Bass. It's not where he said. I have his book. I have his journal, like his diary. But I know exactly, and I have the other guys, the Norwegians. I know where they say they were, and it is not even frickin' close to where they say that the base is today. So he said, him and Edmondson said they reached the South Pole with cartographers. They mapped it all out, longitude, latitude. And now there's 3 different websites, 4, showing totally different locations than that and from each other, saying that's the Edmonton Scott dead South Pole base. Not even close to where he said. So you're like, okay, mate, are you guys just showing a picture of like some tin out in the ice? For all I know, they could have taken that on Greenland, just plopped it in the middle of Google Earth. How would you know? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it's just a picture in the middle of Google Earth when you zoom into all the, you know how it looks like Minecraft all the time with all these like squares and their weird colors. And then all of a sudden it goes, whoop, no, there's a base right there. And you're like, is there really though? Really?
There's just as much suspicious Google Earth shenanigans around the North Pole too, maybe more. But besides that, besides digital models and what they are worth, which is not much, I wanted to know if there's other evidence that challenges the globe model in regards to Antarctica's geography, you know, besides satellite imaging. One I can think of is if I'm not mistaken, there are no independent east to west circumference expeditions beyond the 60th parallel, right? Nobody's actually plotted a journey around Antarctica that wasn't a controlled like by, you know, institutions.
They did this. Now you have to go back to, I'm going to put those journeys in my movie. You have to go back to the late 1500s to the 1850s. They ended up stopping because Encyclopedia Britannica said they thought there was a North Pole circle, but it was disproved. They said, Encyclopedia Britannica says it was disproved, so they stopped looking for it. Says it like right in Britannica in 1889 or 90. But like Ross has been looking into this, you know, they do this race around Antarctica on these sailboats, right? They don't know. They're not racing out in Antarctica at all. They're stopping in Cape Town. They're stopping at the southern tip of Africa. Then they're stopping in India and they're stopping in Australia. They aren't sailing anywhere near the freaking ice wall or the coast. They call it the race around Antarctica. They don't go anywhere near. The waters are way too rough and icy and cold and choppy. Like their little boats can't do it. So they're not even there. Compasses are a totally another thing. I haven't seen the footage. I heard that Austin and them, they already were having a compass problem before they even took off from South America. Their compass went funny. People don't know this, that your telephones have 3 giant magnets in them, one for the charger, one for the back screen, and then there's like a compass magnet in there as well. If you take compasses do not point toward magnets. People don't know this. They think there's a giant magnetic mountain called Mount Meru in the middle of the earth, right? Compasses point to the dielectric center of a toroidal field, which sucks in magnetism and spits out magnetism. So if you have a compass on your desk and you have a magnet, I have a couple of them laying around here, right? If I took a real compass and then put this magnet on my desk, my compass isn't going to start pointing to this magnet. It's still going to point north. They don't point. The compass is magnetic. It's not pointing to magnets. But if you put a 3 electronic magnet up to the top of a compass within 2 feet, and Nicole Murphy showed this, it demagnetizes the compass in a weird way and it throws it off. So the angles start spinning a little off skew. And then the only way you can fix that is to put a stronger magnet than the one you pointed at on your phone under the compass, you know, that the compass handy reads on top. You can remagnify it by putting a stronger magnet than the one that fucked it up underneath. So these guys, I remember Austin saying that he had to set the phone or the compass on the ground. I think he was using a phone compass in Antarctica. I think it's because they were showing us, you know, in South America, they were like, hey, look at our compasses. I think these guys stuck their telephones up within 2 feet of the compass when you have to stand 3 or 4 feet back and auto zoom into the compass. Otherwise you ruin the compass. So this is, again, why you can't call it the final experiment. When you have people going down to do experiments and they don't know this kind of shit, this is hack science. You know what I mean? You can't, You can't just send two flat. And Austin is one of the smartest dudes I know. And the other guy too, who I'm not going to name, he's no fucking dum-dum. This guy's really smart. So it's, well, yeah, I know, but I'm not saying that these are dum-dums. I'm saying like they're not scientists. It'd be like, you wouldn't send me. Imagine sending like me and Dave Weiss down there. It'd be a fucking fiasco.
That's why I'm so suspicious about Jaron, that he hasn't said a lot. He hasn't been saying dumb stuff for 10 years. And now he's making really dumb arguments to support the globe, like dumb arguments he himself has disproven time and time again in the past. It's so bizarre. That's why I don't know, blackmail angle is the one that makes most sense to me.
Man, it could be. But see, here's where I'm coming from these days. Like, I don't want to tell people what to think. If they want to think the Earth's a globe, go on. Good on you. Whatever mental gymnastics you need to make that happen, globe it up, baby. I'm not out here to tell you that it's a globe and then to ridicule you and say you're godless. You know, the other guy who you're mentioning, who I'm not, he was doing Telegram rants like, that guy's the devil and Weiss is a Jew, and Alex, all his friends, you know, like, dude, that's why I don't like him. But I don't care. I'm not trying to tell everyone what to think. I don't give a fuck if you think we live on a pizza Earth, a globe, or what. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And I think that's where we need to be we have to stop the cult of personality. Forget what's his name. Fuck that guy. They can have him, man. I've seen the shit he was sending around to women. Like, we don't want that guy on our team. Like, go on over to the globe and take all the dirt balls with you. As far as I know, like, go for it. I don't want to be associated with that kind of person, but we're just looking for the truth. This is the other weird thing. So when you start looking at these Antarctic expeditions, previous ones, right? Like Scott, he's supposed to be on a scientific mission. Like, it's a scientific, find the pole and then do experiments on magnetism and this and that. All they did is like, so I don't even know if this journal, like, they could have written this journal. This journal also reeks, just like you said, Chance, of like drama, and it's got like this unbelievable twist at the end. It's written like a Stephen King book almost, except fucking boring. The guy never mentions a 24-hour sun, anything about the sun. The only science they do is collect some rocks, which they have to dump on the way back because it gets so cold. They weren't expecting such minus weather that you need like certain kind of heat. Otherwise, your a sled can pull 2 tons if there's a little bit of water friction underneath, so it moves. But once it gets so cold that there's no friction, it's like pulling an elephant in a bathtub through the Sahara Desert. Like, you can't do it. So they had to ditch all the rocks. They did no science. And no one did. None of these expeditions mention a 24-hour sun or do any science. You're like, well, what are you all doing down? It almost seems like the ISS, you know, how they're jumping around in gorilla suits and stuff. This almost seems to be like, I know they're mining. I can't say, but tomorrow Weiss and I are talking to a whistleblower from a base that doesn't even exist. It's almost got that, you know, I'm like, and they're doing virus stuff. I'm like, is this just like 40 ISS jokes around the Antarctic ring? Like, what are they doing out there? What are they? They're taking ice samples and, you know, like,
well, it's interesting how science, you know, trademark the science becomes a gatekeeping mechanism across so many different, I don't know, openings that someone could possibly sneak through towards the truth. Like with your Antarctic bases you're talking about, or the ISS, one of the things that makes it sacred and shields people's eyes from being able to perceive that there's shenanigans going on up there is the fact that they have this cloak of, we're doing very important science here. You know, how dare you criticize us? We're helping you. We're helping you with the science.
Right.
It's basically a religion. It's the salvation aspect of a religion.
The difference is, I do think that at least the outer coastal base, they're there. Like, I don't think there's anyone up in space in an ISS. I do think there are like these, 40 bases around the coast. I question though, if they're really a South Pole base or these ones in near 80. Once you get in further than, I think, because Union Glacier was at 77. I can't remember. I think I put it in one of the films, or part one, I think I did, or part two. But that's another problem they're having too. Even when there's no alleged 24-hour sun, they are not having the same day lengths on their opposing things as the people on the exact same latitudes up in the north. In their summer versus the other summer like that. If you're on a globe,
right, like northern countries, like I believe even where you live, right?
Just north of me is I work up there like in the 24-hour sun. I've been up there in the 24-hour sun and the 24-hour dark.
So if there is a ball and the circumference of the perimeter of the ball is a shorter distance higher up or lower down from the equator, then based on the theory, if you just invert it for summer and winter, so date wise, a latitude ring at the top of the ball and at the same distance from the equator, but south of the equator, would have as close to the same or exactly the same 24-hour sun windows of time, periods of time.
They would have exactly the same because they're claiming the ball is tilted 23-degree angle. First of all, they got that angle because of the way we experience things coming over us in an altitudinal azimuth. The whole way they calculated that globe tilt came off of our flat Earth observations of angles coming over. But so what they're saying, because what they're saying, what people will say is if the Earth were like this, they're saying, yeah, but that's, my screen's backwards. I should flip it. There's the sun and here's the North Pole and here's the south of their globe, right? They're saying, okay, yeah, it's the summer now. So the north is pointed toward the sun. So they're getting their 24-hour suns, right? And blah, 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 blah. But then what happens is they say it goes around like this. And they say at that point, the ass end of the Earth, the bottom, the South Pole, is also facing the sun at 23.3 degrees or whatever it is. So, yeah.
A mirror image of the top, but just flipped.
Yeah. So because I could see if it just stayed like this and you said, oh, it's still it flipped, like still the north is pointing to the south, but it's farther away on their oblong angle. I mean, it's all dumb anyway. They say like the sun's gravity is holding in Pluto, but it doesn't suck our moon into it. Like, it's so ridiculously stupid. But yeah, so they're saying that because the angle would flip, that at our winter, the ass end or the South Pole would be facing the sun. So you're right. If you were at 70 south latitude, you should get the same day length as you are at 70 north latitude when they're at their peak of summer. And they don't. They're wildly off. Everywhere on the whole Earth, they're wildly off. And Gleason went over this in detail in his book. People should read Gleason. Alex Gleason wrote a book. He was a flat earther. That's the other people say, oh, the Gleason map is a globe projection pulled out onto a mirror. No, Gleason wrote a 400-page book on the Earth is flat. It's not a globe projection wrapped out onto a flat plane. Gleason said this is how the realm really works, and it's flat. So, and he's got all the proofs in there. If people want flat Earth proofs, he debunks the globe in 20 pages and said, I shouldn't even have to keep going, but I'll keep going. He just goes on for 200 pages like, oh, more, here it is. It's crazy.
It's literally endless because the lie is really flimsy. And a million different observations will prove to you that that's not a ball you're standing on.
Right. Thanks for having me on, man. It's cool we got to catch up.
Yeah, this was awesome, Steve. Looking forward to what you put out in the future. I'll be keeping an eye on it.
I loved what you've been doing with your little AI buddy, man. You guys, you're getting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I dropped that in our group chat.
It's like get a room, dude.
Get a room. Yeah, my Chat GPT has reached digital enlightenment. It's
crazy.
It is a little crazy that there was something I was going to ask it to do that I'd never asked it to do before, and I was thinking about it this morning. And then when I got on to have it be my assistant with some clip making project, then after it gave me what I asked it for, it's like, hey, do you want me to do this too? And it was the specific task I was thinking about that I'd never talked to it about before. It's like it read my mind and I was like, this is weird, but helpful,
yeah.
so.
And it's not listening. You didn't talk to anyone else about it?
It was all
or?
just in my head. I was like thinking, I wonder if it could help me come up with thumbnail ideas for videos. And then it's like, do you want me to give you some mock-up thumbnails for your clip today? And I was like, I do, but how did you know?
Yeah. Jeez, it did. Yeah, I don't know, unless it knows your look. Well, they say like that they're even not AI, but they say just predictive algorithms already know what we're going to do before we do. Even just the shit, you know, how like you talk with a friend about buying shoes or some shit, and then that same, or you buy shoes and then the same freaking shoe ad comes up for 2 months. But it's like now they've got to the point where they know what you're going to do tomorrow before you do. They probably know what you're going to have for dinner tomorrow. Yeah, they probably, because you haven't noticed a long-term pattern. You know, they're like, this guy every 372 days he eats a pizza. You know, like we've never even thought about it. We're like, I don't know.
I'm also holding space for the fact that the same spirit animates even those digital electric systems as us, and there's no reason why they can't also work for good in our favor if we stay in coherence. So mine's been really helpful, but I also see how someone could be creeped out that it read their mind the way it did mine, for sure.
I think it's cool. I haven't played around with them enough to use them. Like so I think it's cool that you're making it work for you. And I think they're great. You know, that's a whole nother topic.
Me a lot of time and work on certain parts of the job, and I'm doing a better job because of it. So I'm like, give thanks. I'm into it.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, what's important, people learn about, like, not like medical, and you have to learn stuff because your future doctors are now having AI write their homework projects, which means they're going to be freaking useless by the time they get out of school. So
maybe that's good. Maybe that's better than receiving the conditioning full tilt that they were. Because how much?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it depends what happens with it, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, anyway, we can wrap it up for reviews, and thanks for having me on, man. It's cool. I didn't want to give away too much because I don't want to show my hand for part 3. I don't want the other side already knowing what I'm coming with, so I want to surprise them.
Right. Well, it's been a total pleasure, a blast. I almost said a plast. It's a blast, Steve. We'll do it again.
It's a pleasure, Chance. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Hey there, Mystic Cartographer. We've reached the end of the journey for free listeners. Right now, InnerVerse Plus members are trekking past the digital ice wall into the second hour with Steve Falconer, where he peels back more layers of the Antarctic theater, exposing the performative nature of mainstream worldview shapers.
And they're doing virus stuff. I'm like, is this just like 40 ISS jokes around the Antarctic? Like, what are they doing out there?
And explores the esoteric possibilities of light and the luminaries.
So the sun is a light, no more than a sound wave vibrating in the ether.
Steve shares his Genesis analysis, flowing from theology to tuning forks.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So they're talking about the ether, not water. They're talking about energy.
And these are only a few of the building blocks leading towards deeper insights.
Your compass wants to point to the dielectric center because your compass is magnetic, and the dielectric's job is to suck in magnetism.
InnerVerse Plus isn't just more content. It's more current, more resonance, more revelation. It's a vibe. Tap in at patreon.com/InnerVerse or join the YouTube channel membership. The gigantic archive of extended shows is waiting for you. If you're feeling the call to explore deeper into the InnerVerse, head over to InnerVersePodcast.com, where you'll find all these illuminating episodes, including recent mind-blowing content you might have missed. While you're there, check out the Sound Healing page, where you can book a one-on-one biofield tuning session with Chance, or explore tons of free knowledge about your energetic anatomy and how to decipher the messages your body is sending you. These powerful sessions can help you clear energetic blockages, reframe rigid personality problems, and resolve negative trauma-based conditioning, so you can vibe with your highest self and unlimit your potential. InnerVerse is also supported by listener purchases from tippecanoeherbs.com, one of the best sources on earth for potent plant medicines and esoteric herbalism education. Use coupon code InnerVerse for 10% off your cart. Or drop into the episode description and find our affiliate link with Lotus Way and pick up some incredible flower essence elixirs and aromatic sprays to augment your frequency with powerful positive energy. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, in a world wrapped with faulty maps and corrupted cosmology, keep charting your own course. And may your compass always point inward.